Semantic search clarity, making the meaning super clear to search engines. There are several options which you can use to disambiguate what the content is about. So let's tell the search engines more explicitly what are we talking about in this article. So here's a list of 6 different properties which can achieve the goal. The first one is the schema.org same as, and this relates a thing to a URL that indirectly identifies it. Same as emphasizes the well-known pages such as Facebook or Wikipedia. And we see the recommendation from Google for their social accounts feature that asks the webmasters to include the same as on the organization to include their social media profiles. The about property. The about property can refer to multiple entities or topics, in contrast to the main entity of the page, which is the third one. So the about, so this is for whenever you have some pages that have a primary entity that itself describes some other entity. So if you have a web page that may display a news article that is primarily about a famous person, the about property would refer to that person. The main entity of page is used when for the primary entity or the first, like the one entity. So there might be multiple about. So maybe that article has maybe it's describing a movie and there's multiple actors. So they could be talking about the movie and about the actors, whereas the main entity of the page would be the article. So you can see in the comment, a web page displaying news article about a particular person. The about would refer to the person, but the main entity is the article. So you can have both of them working together. So the main entity of the page is the article in this case, whereas the about you can use, as mentioned, to refer to the persons mentioned in the article. The URL and ID are also kind of working similarly. So not to be confused, though, they are different. The URL property should be reserved to refer to the more official or authoritative web pages, such as the item's official website. So if you have perhaps a product review, you might be using the URL to refer to the web page of that. The ID is another one that uniquely identifies things within your document. So you could have, let's say, a product listing page where you have 10 products listed in a category. Each of those would have their ID, so maybe they would have that page URL with some identifier at the end. But each of those URLs would refer to the product detail pages. So that's kind of how you can think of the URL and ID as being separate. So the ID is more about uniquely identifying within the document, and the URL is used to point the search engines to the official page of this concept. The additional type is another way in which you can further declare the type of concept that you're trying to describe. I'll show an example of that in a moment. So with Wikipedia and Wikidata, you can use these databases as a means to semantically relate your content to these concepts, and they're very well known by the search engines. So Google will very often in their answer panels on the right hand side refer to the Wikipedia pages. So it knows about all the Wikipedia articles. So if you are also referring to Wikipedia in your content using some of the available features, you will make it very clear to Google what is the content about. So the about one is a great one, and the URL is another good one that you can use to disambiguate your content. So this is also related to Wikidata in the way that so Wikipedia is basically what all the users see in for viewing the content, whereas Wikidata is kind of a sister project to Wikipedia that pulls a bunch of data out of the Wikipedia repository. So they work alongside one another, and the Wikidata is a newer project from the same foundation, and they have, you can see, 17 million different data items. So one way to think of this is a concept, perhaps a city name has a different spelling in English and French and Spanish, different countries around the world. There's a different URL associated with it. There's a different spelling associated with the exact same concept. But in Wikidata, that has one identifier that has no language in it, but that identifier in Wikidata has has different ways in which that city would be spelled in the different languages. So it does quite a bit of cleanup in the background to kind of link concepts across language and across other types of dimensions. And it's also good to know to see that Google has basically donated its Freebase knowledge base to Wikidata. So Freebase is basically the foundation of the Google Knowledge Graph. And for quite a long time, they were working kind of working almost in competition to one another, tracking different data sets. But a year and a half ago, Google had decided to shut down the Freebase as well as to push its data over to Wikidata. And so there continues to be this integration. So you can know that it's got a lot of data now, and as well it's got the support of the community. So here's an example. If you're talking about a book, you can use the URL to link to Wikipedia. So The Catcher in the Rye, and here you have the URL of the Wikipedia. And over time, I would expect to see more people linking to the Wikidata URL for that same concept. And there's other ways and means in which you can do that lookup, but for the moment, here's the Wikipedia, and that's just fine. Another concept here is the product ontology, and this is where this can be used with the additional type. So Schema.org has hundreds of classes for you to choose from, and yet sometimes you can't find a good class. So if you're talking about a more specific concept or a service or a product, it may not cover all of the needs in which you require. So the additional type property is available for all the things in the Schema.org vocabulary, and you can use it to reference other ontologies or vocabularies. And there's one in particular, it's called the Good Relations Product Ontology. This has more than 300,000 definitions for types of products and services, which you can use Schema.org. And the basic gist of it is that product ontology is actually mirroring most of the Wikipedia concepts for products and services. So if you can find the product or service that most clearly represents the product that you're working with in Wikipedia, then you can use a product ontology through a quick kind of mix process. So the Wikipedia has a space vocabulary. You look it up in the Wikipedia, and then you do a URL pattern, and you'll see right here what I mean. So in architecture, so this was one I did last year. So there's an architect who offers the service of architecture, and we wanted to better declare its definition, because in the ontology or in Schema.org vocabulary, there was the home and construction business, but there was more specific types from that, but there was nothing to do with architecture. So you look up the Wikipedia architecture document and resource. You see that in the top, and then you take the ID or that part that's after the wiki / the suffix of the architecture, and then you append it to productontology.org/ID to get the productontology.org/ID/architecture. And you'd use that URL in your additional type value. And if you were actually to visit that architecture document on the product ontology web URL, it'll show you the description of that product or service. There's also some Schema.org extension options. There's two types of extensions that they recommend you try to work towards. This was actually replaces some other older methods of extending, and there's two types now that they recommend you use. So the first is this reviewed/hosted extensions. And so this is an extension mechanism that is actually reviewed by the Schema.org vocabulary team and hosted on Schema.org. So you can see that there's two so far. So the auto is for the automobile industry. They have like bus or coach and motorcycle and fuel economy type of properties that they've introduced. And those can be used in your markup. And they have the broad support of industry. So this is kind of one of the key features, is that you have multiple parties participating in agreeing, so that you're not just dominating it with some sort of proprietary definitions of the vocabulary. And so that's more of the formal process. And there's another one for financial industry, business ontology, so the FIBO, which should be coming out pretty soon. As a reviewed hosted extension, but there's not too many being produced. So this is maybe one, or GS1 actually is another one, which is like a global standards body. So there's a few of them, but if that is not your cup of tea, there's a more lightweight way in which you can do an external extension. And in here you can see that you can create like a schema subdomain on your organization website, and in here they have schema.pinterest.com for basically a way in which Pinterest could provide its own external extension. So here they may specify how it links up with the core schema.org. So you use that to extend your schema.org vocabulary. And this goes into your into the context. So whenever you do and see the JSON LD exported, there's a context field. And if you have more questions about that, feel free to contact us. This is to give you some idea of that you can extend it, and here's the two in which are formally recommended by the standards group.